Fans, we are back live with another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of the organization known as Great North Wrestling. We're just awaiting the arrival of the co-host for tonight, of course, Mr. Cheap Heat himself, Morris Shorthall. But we have with us the man for whom this show is named, the draw, the icon himself, Mr. Mario Mancini. Mario, how are you today, sir?
I'm good, Jack. Listen, as an icon, there's something that goes along with my legend, my icon, that everybody must know. So pay close attention to this very famous, iconic kind of famous thing. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
It's my whole career. What an icon.
Well, without you, sir, there wouldn't be the careers of a numerous Hall of Famers, of which today I wanted to speak to you later on about, not necessarily a Hall of Famer, but an individual that you gave his first match in the WWF to, and that would be not the usual suspects, but one Ted Arcidi. So we'll get into that if time permits in the moments to come. But first of all, I wanted to take a second to discuss the passing of a legendary figure in professional wrestling, both as a main event talent in Georgia, Jim Crockett Promotions, etc., but also perhaps more remembered for his booking and office work, simultaneously booking a couple of territories at the same time. And I would be speaking about the one and only Ole Anderson, who passed away last, I guess it was an hour or so before Raw went on the air. And what I found interesting, Mario, back to a WWEF connection, is that WWF actually acknowledged and put a graphic up about the passing of Ole, and just wanted to get your thoughts on that, considering that this may be a harbinger of the fact that Mr. McMahon is out for good out of the organization, given the famous story, which I'm sure you're probably aware of, when Vince offered him an opportunity to come and work for him, the Black Saturday affair, when Ole was taken out of the time slots there in Georgia Championship Wrestling, and he told Vince to F off, and several weeks later his wife. So just get your thoughts on all of that, sir.
Unfortunately, and it's a big loss on my part that I never had the opportunity to meet Ole Anderson. Of course, I've worked with Arn, Tully, Harley Race, Terry Funk, and I throw those names out because they're associated with that kind of territory, Absolutely different wrestlers, different, and their philosophies were different. But Ole Anderson, legend. I mean, royalty, wrestling royalty. Come on, the original Four Horsemen. And he did a lot more as a wrestling promoter. And listen, the guy was outspoken, and he did what he wanted to do. And the thing about Ole is, we all loved Ole because guys my age, or a guy like Harley Race and Arn Anderson and Tully and Wyndham and all those guys, because he believed in what I believe, and that's old school wrestling. He didn't put up with any bullshit or anything, and it's a big loss to the wrestling community. And he was just gigantic in the wrestling business, just huge, Ole Anderson. So we literally lost a legend, a true legend, somebody who truly is iconic in the wrestling business. It's just
I always hate to hear about the passing of that generation, because it seems like, they're the last kind of bridge to the pro wrestling that I grew up loving, especially all the time I spent in the South in Crockett territory. And I know Ole got a lot of um, rather, he was a polarizing figure for a number of reasons. But I think if you read his book, that came out about 2002, 2003, I recently got a copy of it. It's fairly difficult to get a hold of, and I'm about halfway through it. You can see that he had a real love for the actual business, and when things started to go the way that they did and move away from a more serious sports-based product to whatever we have today, whatever you want to call it today.
Whatever you want to call it is correct.
Whatever you want to call it today, aside from some independence. I think that he will be regarded as one of the most accomplished minds in the business, highly intelligent. I mean, to wrestle and book in 2 territories on a main event level, I mean, that says it all. So, I was personally sad to get that news, and I would encourage folks, if you can get a hold of his book, it's definitely a good one. It's called Inside Out: How Corporate America Destroyed Professional Wrestling. But I see, after some technical difficulties, Morris, Mr. Cheap Heat, has arrived. Sir, welcome to the Mario Mancini Show.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you to Mario for having me on his show today.
You guys are ball breakers.
Mario, before we get started, Mario, there's just someone here in the chat that's mentioned that he's looking for you on News Weekly. He's seeing you and Paul Roma there. Do you want to fill in the fans on what you two guys have been up to?
He's talking about News Nation. Roma and I did that show, which has sparked so many other things now. I mean, our phones won't stop ringing. One major network has nailed us down. We're waiting for contracts. So, would like to get you guys involved, of course. You know how the wrestling business is. You take care of your own, So, so that's News Nation. I don't know if you can catch it on YouTube. I don't know if you can. There's a website you can watch back episodes of News Nation. I have one thing that I was exposed to around about 38 years ago that I've never mentioned, and I can't because I'm not going to, I make decent money, but I don't have enough money to pay off a lawsuit, and I'm not saying it. So, I think the point of Banfield, who was the host of the show, was trying to get that out of me, and he just couldn't do it. The funny part, gentlemen, is when I did New York Magazine, and I did it for Rita Chatterton. And at the same time, there were those 3 or 4 other women that were making the same claim. Everybody was jumped on the ship. There were 4 or 5 different women, including Rita, making claims at that time in 2022 or whatever. Yeah, it had to be 2022 because that's when they lifted the statute in the state of New York for sexual harassment. So, after I did that article, at the end of that article, I said, there's worse stuff than that. And then when the allegation of him defecating on a woman's head, I came on Cheap Heat, and she quoted me, Banfield, from Cheap Heat. And she said, you said he's a narcissistic sociopath. She cut the real nasty stuff out, I said, So she tried to get it out of me because the funny part about it, at the end of that New York Magazine article, I said, there's worse stuff than that. And then he defecates in somebody's head. And then I go, there's worse stuff than that. And people are like, what? I'm like, there's worse stuff than that. Worse stuff than that. So, you know, everybody's trying to, I just got a call a half hour ago from somebody from Empire Media saying, oh, we want you to come on a documentary. I said, well, I'm kind of sewn up by a major company right now. So waiting for a contract. So I really can't deal with anybody else, you know. And, you know, not to get off the subject or switch gears so quickly, but this is a segment of the show. It's called Guilt Jack Kilby. So last Tuesday, I get frustrated, right? I start getting mad because when you get somebody in a headlock, you snatch a headlock. You snatch a headlock. You know, I always make sometimes they laugh, sometimes they don't. I go, this is the only time in your life that you can use the word snatch and it's not sexual. So I use snatch a headlock. Okay. Now, Maurice, why am I saying that? Because I have students in the school that go to lock up and they curl into a headlock. It's not a curl. You don't curl into a headlock. Okay.
It's like a hug.
Yeah. You lock up. Okay. The hand goes behind the neck. The right foot goes out maybe 6 inches. You pull in and the guy falls into your rib cage and you snatch the headlock. Well, I locked up. My hand went behind his head, his neck. I stepped to the right and I snatched him into a headlock and ripped every rhomboid in my thoracic spine.
Oy.
The pain for a week, Advil wouldn't touch it. Nothing. My Cairo was in Texas visiting his father. When I went home, my daughter was working. When I'm working, my daughter was home. Finally, by Friday, 3 days later, we connected. And I had her walk on my back and it went brr, 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 and thank God by Sunday I was okay. I snatched a headlock and I ripped the muscles in my mid back. Jack,
Has this set you back for the Great North Wrestling comeback, or are we still good?
No, we're
That's because you learned under the greats, the great hookers and shooters, and you can't phone it in, Mario. I admire that.
That's if the big TV company let him go now. If the big TV company let him go to Great North Wrestling, you may put that in your contract that you can appear here and there.
Well, listen, here's the deal. I'm hoping Jack can work something out because the way my life is working out, when it comes to the wrestling business, is it's turning out that Roman's greatest tag team partner outside of the ring is me. And he's mine. And it's just like News Nation. I said, I don't want to come on unless you have Roman. I said, you want Roman. He was a bigger star than I was. He was in WrestleMania. And he was exposed to more than I was exposed. I told the truth on there. Tell me about Vince McMahon. Well, let me tell you something. Other than in 8 years talking to him maybe 4 times, and that's not including the time I spent on Tuesday Night Titans. What kind of major? Sure, I can go on and bullshit. I don't do that. Jack, what kind of conversation is a jobber going to have with Vince McMahon? You know what I mean? What kind of conversation you going to have? I've had several with them about different things, which I've gone over on this podcast. But you know, what I said on News Nation was that doesn't mean I didn't see what I saw and my ears weren't open, but didn't necessarily have a close relationship with Vince McMahon. Roma did. So it turns out that, you know, anything I do, you know, even these wrestling conventions and everything, I don't, you know, it's Rome and I are doing everything together, everything. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because when I get to Canada, after I lace my boots and my trunks are on, I'm all taped up, basically ready to go, I have to lay on the floor and somebody's got to stretch me. My hamstrings, everything's got to get stretched. Everything. Everything, or else it's just not going to work that well. Now, I used to get stretched out by one of the guys in my wrestling school, and he knew how to do it well. Unfortunately, he passed away. So I just need to be stretched out so I don't pull any rhomboids anymore. That was just snatching a headlock. That was it. So
maybe we could get Muffy in, Jack, for that, to be his personal trainer.
Well, I will say this. I would more than welcome having Mr. Roma on the show, do some appearances, legend work, et cetera, and I'll definitely be reaching out to him. As I told him when we spoke on this show, I was a fan of his back in the day. I had the opportunity to watch him wrestle live at Maple Leaf Gardens as a kid a couple of times, as well as his work with Power and Glory. I thought they were robbed. They should have been champions. Just bullshit politics. And I think in WCW he got not exactly the most fairest of shakes there either. But bottom line is, I have a lot of respect for Mr. Roma and would most definitely have some discussions with him about coming in, because this is going to be a very, very special show. It's the first time in over a decade that quality professional wrestling has been in this community, Napanee, Ontario, and we're going to start clicking very, very shortly on the promotional part. And it's already a loaded card with Mario being on it and a lot of the other surprises. I'm in talks right now with another WWF legend about coming in as well, and that's going to be a little bit of a surprise until we nail that down. And of course, Rene Dupree is committed to, if he's got the guts to show up and get his rematch against the Canadian champion Magnum McLaren. And you know what? I've got a memory that doesn't forget things, and I haven't forgotten what he did to me in November. He knows it, I know it, and he just better be on his A game. So they're going to be scores settled there, and some very, very memorable moments. So Paul Roma would definitely be the icing on that cake.
Well, I'm going to make this really easy for you to make you very happy, because Scott Wilder wants to jump in the car.
Perfect.
So if Scott ends up jumping in the car, he's going to end up handling Roma, for the autograph session and stuff. So it might just be like a base kind of guarantee, and then whatever he's going to make with Scott Wilder, hopefully. But I think we're going to be able to work it out, and I think it'll be very affordable. Nikki Duke is coming up. She's going to be in the car. So
how's her recovery going?
Her recovery is going very well. She's very young, which helps. And she's an extraordinary athlete, which helps. So, she's going to be coming to Canada, for the girls' match there. And so we just have to make sure We have a head count in the car. It looks like we're gonna have to get like one of those passenger vans or so and just haul our asses to Canada. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a 6-man tag team match because I can't wrestle singles matches anymore. So
That's all good.
Oh yeah. Well, what I'm going to pride myself on is pleasing Jack with the psychology, of course. Not so much the wrestling, but the psychology of the whole thing. So that's what really makes it work. As I say to the students, you think learning the moves is the hard part. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing when to do what, where, and why. So. Hopefully everything goes well, but everybody is very excited to go, Jack. Everybody is pumped up. I mean, crazy excited. So, of course, my goal as the old man and my goal as owner of Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling is the old man's going to leave. And it's up to you that night whether Jack's going to call you back. So you go back up there. You might not be with the old man, but at least you'll be going back there, but that's up to the promoter. You got to bring it. The promoter has to look and say, hey, listen, I think I could do something with this person. And this person got a lot of heat or they got a lot of gas tonight. So, it all depends. The fate is in their hands. I'm not going to ask for a favor. They have to earn it. They have to earn it. So.
And knowing the type of one of the other components that I pride myself on in the new incarnation of Great North Wrestling, and not to say that it wasn't there in the past, is that we run a very friendly, professional locker room. Folks have a good time there. We're talking, individuals that have come in from other provinces, from New York State, elsewhere. We just have a really good time. We put on a really good show, and there's no BS. We had, like any organization, there's got to be one cancer that's been cut out of the locker room, so they won't be back. But other than that, we run a very friendly, professional organization, and that word has gotten out, and knowing how you run your school and your track record, I'm sure your students will fit in there as well like a glove.
Oh, they'll be calling you sir. Believe me, they know, they're very educated on, and for the younger kids too, when the parents come in, I go, look, just know this. You think that there's a lot of discipline in the martial arts. I said it pales in comparison to professional wrestling. Pales in comparison. So I'm looking forward to it. So I just gotta stay limber, stay a little limber. I'll be going back in the ring tonight. So
good man.
Yeah, I'll be going back in there tonight. So
before we leave the topic of this card, I almost forgot, but didn't really, but almost forgot. My good friend will be coming to this show as well. We've just put the details together to defend, for the first time in over 10 years, the Hardcore Road Trip Heavyweight Championship. I would be speaking about none other than the Kingpin, the King of the Streets, Mr. Baldy's himself, Angel Medina, will be on this card.
Wow.
Excellent.
Wow, that's great.
So we're going to have a loaded show, folks. The link will be out there. March will be the month when you're going to start hearing a lot about this show and your ability to be a part of it.
Mario, we have to get down to some serious business.
Go ahead, sir.
You called me when I was in Manchester, not last Sunday, the Sunday before, about, 9 days ago now. And then we were supposed to do a show last week, but we couldn't because we were actually both ill. But now we're both raring to go again. But it was I didn't realize that I seen that Rita Chatterton had went back inside the ring and done a match. And I was delighted for her, you know, and I wrote on her Facebook saying, "Oh, great to see you back in the ring," etc., etc. Never really thought anything of it. Went to Manchester, got a phone call from you, and then I realized that something else that I'd seen over the weekend, which wasn't as positive, was on the same show, and it didn't really sit well with you and a lot of people I know.
I since then dumped it. I dumped the issue because the promoter stood strongly by his decision, number one. Number two, I spoke to you. And then I spoke to Scott Wilder. And I love being Mario Mancini. But there's another part of me and another part of my brain that does a lot of different thinking. And my thinking was this: if there's no cooperation and there's no evidence and there's no conviction, my mouth is shut. Nobody has the right to say anything. Nothing. So I totally shifted. You know, I called Rita because, you know, I said, look, I've looked after you this long. I'm not going to stop. And then, you know, at first she was kind of upset. And then I talked to her too. And, you know, there's really nothing there but word of mouth. And after I went through what I went through with a certain individual, stating that making an artificial intelligence voice of a female, saying I sexually harassed her and it's not a real human being, and saying that I claimed that I was in the military and all this other stuff that wasn't true. Well, you know, I'm not a hypocrite, so I don't even really want to address it, because to me there's no issue. And hopefully that individual will get other opportunities. I think it's horrible if you know your reputation gets damaged. You know, that's what all defamation is about, right? Somebody that tries to defame your reputation and you sue them, you know, and what's the defense to defamation? The truth. And if nobody can prove the truth and back up that stuff, then that person wins. So I don't see conflict anymore. So
yeah, the WWE, when that guy was there, did find no evidence of wrongdoing and kept him on TV for over 2.5 years. So
yeah,
they still released him in the end, but he did come at a time where there was a lot of releases, and maybe it was just the easy option at the time. But as you say, there is nothing out there legally.
No.
To,
so as Hulk Hogan would say quite often, at the end, brother, we're all jobbers. In the end, brother, we're all jobbers in the end, you know. So you know, eventually they, you know, WWE releases everybody, but who is this? Because I don't really know. This is for you, Maurice, because you're always up on this stuff. It's been told to me, set aside the WWE and set aside TKO, that this Ari Emanuel has bought everything lock, stock, and barrel.
I don't actually know about that. Do you know about that, Jack?
To my understanding, he is the top of the pyramid for both companies. UFC and WWE. There's under bosses, so to speak, in terms of UFC and WWE, which was Vince, but he is the absolute top of the mountain and
he's the head of the table.
He's the head of the table, not to use that analogy, but there's some question about his knowledge of the allegations surrounding Mr. McMahon dating back to when the merger occurred. And there has been some speculation, specifically with Meltzer, that he was aware of what was in the wind, so to speak, and had the view that the WWE and the merger would not be complete without McMahon. But then that was July when the acquisition took place. But then in October, they released a statement saying that they thought that McMahon could be a corporate risk because of said investigation going on by the Fed. So it's again, it's all conjecture and speculation, but he is the head top dude in the combined company entity known as TKO.
Okay. All right. So from my understanding, he's the one that told Vince to leave.
Yes.
So he's fairly young, this guy.
To my understanding, he and the other Nick Khan, said that when before the Rumble, when Slim Jim pulled out the day before, that it would be best for all involved if he resigned, which is, of course, what he ended up doing. But it was Emmanuel and Mr. Khan, not Tony.
No. I guess these guys make Tony Khan look like he only has a couple bucks.
combined, yes. But the at the end of the day, if you look at the history of that company, I mean, Vince got away with a lot, and the corporate culture was what it was before it went public. So going public was both, financially the most tremendous. Vince went from a millionaire to a billionaire, as well as others. I'm thinking of Kevin Dunn and whatnot. But then when it became a publicly traded company, you're involving a whole new playing field. And in the corporate structure, wrestling was and always has been a tough fit. And I think it just finally caught up with Mr. McMahon.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've said it a lot of times before, you know what I mean, that when it was his game, when it was his ball, even though what he was doing was wrong and the harassment and this and that and the other thing, it was in-house. Once you start going public and involving other people, you have other people to answer to. It's like when I was talking to these producers for this enormous company, I said, listen, I'll give you an example. I mean, 2 days after Snuka killed that woman, we all knew it. And then what? How many years ago? Snuka's passed now. What was it, 10 years ago? Or 8 years ago? Jimmy Snuka committed murder, or
2015, I believe the charges finally came.
I'm like, duh. You know what I mean? So it's, that's how everything was swept under the carpet. That's why I'm talking to really good people right now, and they're very tenacious. Very tenacious. So that's why this thing I won't speak about, I'm like, you know, it's up to them. It's up to them to find these people. And this is why Roma and I always say, you know, when is anybody coming forward? So there's a lot. There's a ton more out there. There's a ton more out
I
there.
I heard that they've got something big to drop WrestleMania week as well. Now I don't know what it is, but that's the talk at the moment. They seem to always drop these things when there's a big event coming up.
Well, they want to try to squash it. See, that's the joke of
Which
it.
they won't.
No, and Morris, that's the joke of it. See, and that's why Vince is the way he is, right? What did they call John Gotti? The Teflon Don, right? No matter what happens to Vince, no matter if Duggan and the Sheik get caught in the same car, no matter if there's a steroid trial, no matter if Ring Boys got molested, no matter if Mel Phillips is playing with a 9-year-old's toes, there's always a sellout. He doesn't pay the price. There's not like, you know, and I hate to be so nostalgic, but if not for Babe Ruth, I don't know if my country would have Major League Baseball. Babe Ruth saved baseball. When the White Sox, or should I say the Black Sox, fixed the 1919 World Series, the public wasn't interested in baseball anymore. They thought it was a bunch of shit. They didn't believe in baseball anymore because they all got accused of throwing the World Series. Babe Ruth came in, and when he started exploding, he saved baseball. You know, so we are not of a society to say he did what? He defecated on somebody's head. And he passed her around. He did what? Hey, you got our tickets to WrestleMania? Yeah, I got them in my pocket. Terrific. No, nobody's going, we're going to boycott this thing. Jack?
Well, I was just thinking as you were speaking, and you being a wrestling historian and having a appreciation for the territory days. Why is it that it seems to me that New York has been the epicenter of, at least in the modern era, we're not going back to Tootsmond and Farmer Burns and et cetera, but in the modern 1960 on era of wrestling, it seems like no other territory and organization has been the epicenter of scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal. And I know Grizzly Smith was doing his thing in the Carolinas and elsewhere, and there were incidents, of malfeasance, what have you, in other territories and in other times. But it seems the names that you just rattled off there, Terry Garvin, Patterson, Phillips, Rita's case, the Ashley Massaro, like on and on. It seems to be that Vince McMahon, wherever Vince McMahon was in the modern era, Snuka, of course, wherever Vince McMahon was, there was this really atrocious conduct happening. And it seemed to be that it started with him and it was condoned by him, and others took advantage of that environment. Or am I just over simplifying? My point is that professional wrestling has always had, a reputation of being, somewhat shady from the carnival, blah, blah, blah. But I can't think of a more deviant sort of territory or organization than New York, where McMahon Jr. was.
Well, like any other business, right? The owner sets the pace. The owner is the one that sets the climate, right? So Jack, what we had, not what I had, I wish. Oh my God, I wish. So many stories from Johnny Rods and Jose Luis Rivera and Jose Estrada, so many stories from those guys about the old man. So you go 1983 back, and we had and who set that tone? Vince McMahon Sr. We had a very friendly wrestling business. They were able to call up, Vern Gagne could call up Vince and go, hey, can I get Andre? Sure. We'll send Andre to you. So Andre would go, hey, can we get Bob Backlund down here? Yeah, we'll send Bob Backlund to you. Hey, can you send Dusty Rhodes up here? Yeah, we'll send Dusty to you, Vince. Sure, Dusty could work the garden. Very nice. Very, very nice business. And then just before I broke in, the old man dies. And I hear from Jose Luis Rivera and all these guys, he loved us. He went out of his way for the jobbers. And he booked us. I never got the experience. Vincent K came in, and he was motivated by power and greed. And you have to remember, since he was a young man in military school, who was he in military school with? Johnny V. Luscious Johnny V. Vince held his ass out the window. Big trouble. You're going to get kicked out of military school. So they investigate it and they go, who was it? And Johnny V goes, it was me. He got kicked out. He took the rap for Vince, So my point is, he was doing that stupid shit back then. One of the most frustrating moments of my wrestling career was when that interview was over at TNT. And he looked over at us and said, I was kind of hoping that the set didn't stay in one piece, but okay. And I looked at Roma, this 18-year-old Mario Mancini looked over at Roma and said, if I knew he wanted us to destroy the fucking set, I would have done it. You guys have no idea how much regret I have for Tuesday Night Titans. Tuesday Night Titans is very edited. Roma and I were so green, and Lombardi was there for a while, and he just kept insulting us. You don't see that. It's edited. And I've laid in bed many nights, going, why didn't I just look over at him and go, Lombardi, you got a big mouth. And he would have said, well, why don't you try to shut it, Mancini? And could have did something, but we didn't know what to do. We were that close to Vince McMahon. So didn't know what to do. We were scared. We were nervous. But there's a lot in that interview when Lombardi was just verbally attacking us. And we should have destroyed the set. You know what I mean? So if you watch a lot of early stuff, this is the way Vince got away with things too. If you watch a lot of early stuff with Vince and fans, and especially some wrestlers, they'll say, well, I didn't know. I thought the guy was just an announcer. I didn't know I thought the guy was just an announcer. Because even when I was a kid, I would have never guessed. He looked like a dweeb. He looked like some sort of, Poindexter kind of guy. I mean, I didn't even know he had the physique he had. I was like, holy he's bigger than the boys. Because he was frustrated, because he wanted to work. He wanted to work. He wanted to work. And his father said, when you own the company and everybody's digging the ditch for you, you watch them dig a ditch. You don't grab the shovel and dig it with them. You own it. You don't dig the ditch. So, from early on, and you got to remember something. Remember this too, how different the business could have been. And what a nice guy. And I was booked. He loved me. He loved me. He looked at me and he goes, work really hard in the ring, kid. I said, thank you so much. He loved me. George Scott. When I broke into the business, George Scott was the booker. George Scott was the booker. And shortly after I was in, he got fired and Pat became the booker, and Pat was the booker forever. So, it's like Jack goes to Morris, hey, listen, I want to hire Mario. You go, well, Jack, Mario eats a lot, Yeah, well, we make cookies here. He's going to eat all the cookies. No, we're going to bring him in anyway. That's your decision. You know what I mean? Like Roma said, not me, because I looked like, the Pillsbury dough guy, but Roma said, here, you guys, basically you're naked. We just have a pair of underwear on. Roma's physique, Jim Powers' physique, Rick Rude's, Warriors. And you got Pat Patterson that eats a lot of cookies working in a cookie factory. You know what I mean? So this is Vince's decision. He sets the tone for his company. I'm kind of ashamed of myself because way back in the day, when I'd be interviewed and stuff, and when these social media podcasts came to light, I'd say, listen, you own a major company with thousands and thousands of employees. There's two things. One is called macro managing, and the other one's called micromanaging. Do you think Vince McMahon has time to micromanage? And I'd cover him. I'd try to cover him, and they would end up going, yeah, he couldn't know everything that was going on. He's kind of bit. I go, yeah, he can't micromanage everybody. Like,
except he slept 2 hours a day.
Listen, he knew who was working for him. He knew all the personalities. He knew what was going on. He knew, he knew what Mel Phillips was all about. He knew, it was just. He set the tone. He's the one that made it the wild, wild west. And as long as he was making money, if he just figured it was never going to come out, nothing was going to ever happen. But what are you going to do if you own Walmart and you hire 5 people and they go, Jack, these 5 people you just hired, yeah, well, all 5 of them have criminal records for larceny. Yeah, that's okay. And they start robbing the store. Vince hired people that started robbing the store.
Mario, do you think because of what you and Paul are doing, and this goes back a bit further as well, that's very taboo within the business, you know, with the guys. You were afraid before when you start doing this kind of thing, and now it's going to a higher level. Can you see that causing problems between you and your peers, or can you see it working in a positive light and letting more people come out with their stories?
Well, now listen, I think more people will come out with their stories. Mo, there's only a handful. And I made a TikTok because I got the clip of John Cena on Howard Stern. Disgusting. Disgusting. I stand by and support Vince McMahon because I love him. He's my friend.
Yep, that's what he said.
And when your friend's back is up against the wall, when his shit hits the fan, well, that's when you find out who your real friends are. I agree. An unexpected misfortune. Something financially somebody didn't expect. God forbid, a physical ailment. You know, some sort of situation that just hit him in the face like a brick that he didn't see coming. Not when you defecate on somebody's head. So I said what John Cena said was disgusting. Now, that's a shame because he's got more Make-A-Wish Foundation appearances than any athlete in the history. And he seems like a really nice guy. There's your exception. So, Maurice, if I'm making you, I don't know, $15 million a year, and they go, hey, that Mancini is a real son of a bitch, you're going to go, why? You're wrong. That guy's fantastic. You know what I mean? So we have a handful of guys. So we have Cena. Taker's not going to say anything. He's not going to say anything one way or the other. Mick Foley kind of tap danced around it. Gee, wish something was done earlier. You know, these are guys that are paying their mortgage, going to the grocery store, you know, paying, you know, buying, making their car payments or buying cars off of wrestling money. These are very few and far between. Not even The Rock, not even Dwayne or Steve Austin. I look at Dwayne Johnson and Steve Austin as exceptions to the rule, because Dwayne Johnson is the biggest movie star in the world.
Yep.
His stepping stone was pro wrestling. So if he sucked as an actor, that would have been something on him because of his talent to excel and be the biggest movie star in Hollywood. That's on him. That's on him. That's he made that for himself. For himself. You know? Steve Austin. You can't make anybody else Steve Austin. There's only one. Nobody else could have pulled that off. And, you know, during the Attitude Era, he might be the one that have really saved Vince's ass from the WCW. So in my mind, he did more for Vince than Vince did for him. You're not going to hear anything out of Steve Austin. Now let's go down the ladder. I have to drop names. I hate this. Because they're my friends, man. They're my friends. So I'm not going to go off the business. I'm going to go off their personality. Tito Santana, not that kind of guy. Tito, I think I love Tito so much because he's the closest personality to Strongbow that's still here. Sometimes I feel like talking to Tito's like talking to the Chief. and everybody knows what chief means to me, everything. So, Tito's like, that's not my business. Well, Vince pulled a dick off of somebody, put on a hot dog bun, he'd go, it's not my concern. It's not my business. Please leave me alone. You know what I mean? So Tito's, you're not going to get Tito. Valentine, his father was Johnny Valentine. He's wrestling royalties, blood, old school. You don't talk. You don't do that shit. Not going to get him. Now, there's a list of other guys out there that Vince didn't deal with too well. From my era, that I'm working with this major company to in Roma to let them know who I think, a guy like Jimmy Hart's not going to say anything. It was funny because Scott Wilder had whispered something in Jimmy's ear when we were in Maryland. And Jimmy just parted from him and said, brother, I don't say anything about anybody. I don't butt in anybody's business, and I don't talk about anything about anybody. I keep to myself. So he confirmed that right there. That's Jimmy Hart. He's not going to, but there are other guys in my era that you don't think for the right amount of money David Schultz isn't going to come on. Vince ruined his life, and he lied to him. Stay in character. There's this guy out here trying to kill our business. Stay in character. Stay Dr. D. Bret Hart's his own brand. You have professional wrestling, then you have Bret Hart. Who is professional wrestling? Does he want to talk? I don't know. But
I think he distanced himself. I think he actually distanced himself a little bit from Vince last week, from what I read. So
yeah,
who knows?
So, Bret, going to Bret Hart, you might, is the same thing as saying, hey, somebody needs to go to the King, because that's Bret Hart. That's he is the business, So I don't know. I don't know, but there are a lot of guys out there that got screwed and feel they got screwed, that know a lot of things, and they kept their mouths shut. And whether they want to keep their mouth shut now is up to them. You know what I mean? So, this is what I'm saying. This is what this yeah, you know what? They always joked with me when I was going to law school, they go, you become a lawyer, you're going to be the only broke lawyer we know, because I like to help people, and I can't help but if I owned the WWE right now, I'd be concerned about Virgil. I'd be concerned about Mike Jones. I'd be reaching out who's ever handling Mike Jones and say, where is he? Is he eating? Is he in a facility? I'm a billionaire, damn it. Is he in a facility? Where is he? Well, no. He's in a wheelchair urinating his pants because he can't afford any. No. Let's get him in a facility. Let him get taken care of. How about a call to Valentine? Hey, Greg, how you doing? How are you? Tell me how you are. Beefcake. All these guys. Ordendorf passes away. Can I help you with the funeral expenses? Once you're done, you're done. Yeah, you threw some cookies. Let's do a Legends house. Let's do a Legends night. Bring back some old timers. What are they getting a payday here and there? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? You know, so, you know, even Bruno, God forgive me, because he's the reason why I wanted to become a pro wrestler, and he was my hero. And it's not, there's very few people in life that had a hero and could look somebody in the face and go, I was friends with him. It's almost impossible. Impossible. He had his stance on pro wrestling. He had his stance on Vince McMahon. But they even broke Bruno down with $1 million to get him into the Hall of Fame. Bruno wasn't going to say no to the million. So with a lot of these guys, it all comes down to money. And Roma's right. I'm like, Roma, why? How come some of these guys aren't talking? He goes, cause Mancini, they still think their fucking phone's going to ring. I go, come on. Yes, they think their phone's going to ring. And it's going to be Vince.
That's exactly what I said to Paul Roma the other day when I texted him after I seen his TV appearance on Twitter, and I said, fair play to you and Mario. I still think some of the guys are waiting on the call.
Yeah, see, I know that call's never coming. That call's never. And I don't want the call, Jack. You know why? You know what my call would have been? Do you know, as Bruce Pritchard would say on his podcast, you know, if I need a serious job done, I'll just call Mario Mancini. We need you to come into SmackDown. Yeah, for what? For a brutal beating. Are you kidding me? That's what I would be called in for, to get the living shit knocked out of me. They're not bringing me in there to put me over. They're going to have like 5 guys wear old clothes. They're going to tear them. And you know what I mean? They would have called me in to get the shit knocked out of me. I'm not doing that. I did enough of it. You know, so I'm not getting a call. There's no jobber wing to the Hall of Fame. They didn't say, look, we're putting you in 3 WWE encyclopedias. They didn't split that all with the boys. Hey, listen, we're going to give you 1% of every sale, or 0.5% of every sale, or 0.25%. Or like Vincent's usual royalty deals was, I think it was 1/2 cent. That's what you got for royalty, 1/2 penny. They won't even do that. So what are they? There's nothing. There's nothing. So I don't care. I don't care. So the only thing I ever got out of that place when I left, God bless Tony Starson. Tony Starson started that job when I started, and she was in promotions. And they got rid of the promotions department 10 or 15 years. It doesn't even exist anymore. But I was able to see a kid in a wheelchair with his parents, or a special needs kid, and I was able to call Tony Starson. She'd pick up the phone every time and say, I need a promotion package sent to this address. And she would fill it with action figures and autographed 8x10s and all kinds of wrestling goodies, and send out a box. That was my thing. And I called her up one day and I said, she goes, Mario, that's all gone. There's no more promotion department. It's gone. So I'm sure she's retired now. I hope so. So she's one of the few survived that can get fired. You know, you get on the Jim Troy era of wrestling. You walk in, you see big blonde Jim Troy there, the hockey player that he was. And, you know, Ed Cohen with that porn stash he's got sitting behind his desk. You know, what do you do? We're gonna find out, gentlemen, very shortly who's gonna want to talk and who's not. And it's very hairy, because you can't get
Can I ask one question that won't spoil the project? Is it going to be like a TV deal in America, kind of on TV over there, or is this kind of a stream? Can you relate on that? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So and it's journalism. You can't pay for journalism. It's unethical. So not only do you have to convince the guys to talk, you got to convince them to talk for free. So,
well, at the end of the day, Mario, you have to speak your truth, and those that are willing to speak their truths will. Those that are motivated by other things will not. But I would agree with your sentiment earlier that it's a travesty that a corporation, a company with those sort of financial means doesn't offer any sort of health insurance for their folks, and that includes AEW, by the way, that said that they were going to offer health insurance for their wrestlers too, and so far none of that. So,
well, that's why I recommended to these kind people, these kind producers, get a hold of Jesse Ventura, get him on, because he's the one that tried to organize professional wrestling back in the day. He's the one that tried to get the health insurance and the 401ks and all that stuff, and it didn't happen. I said, get him. He'll talk about that all day long. So
Chris Nowinski could be another good one. We were only talking about him the other day, Jack. You know Chris Nowinski, Mario. He studies head injuries in sports. He's the one who actually studied Chris Benoit's brain after he died and made all the discoveries about the state of his brain, etc. So he's a good one.
The Sports Legacy Institute.
Yeah, ex-pro wrestler as well in WWF.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, there's Stephanie, Shane, Linda, Triple H, Bruce Pritchard, Shawn Michaels. You know, what's going to happen? I think all of them should go except one, and that's Triple H. I think it'd be a big mistake to get rid of him, because I think in his heart he loves this business so much. I think he loves it more than his father-in-law.
That's depending on if he has nothing in the closet as well, of course.
Of course. I don't... Listen.
You hope not.
Well, listen. It was... I'll always say it was the wild, wild west. I mean, it's hard. It was hard.
Did you hear what he said at the press conference a few weeks ago when they asked him about the allegations? He said he didn't read it. So that's not a good sign. That was actually the only bad piece of PR he's done, really. Yeah,
no, I don't. You know, a lot of people said, you know, I didn't read the whole thing, but, you know, and sadly, the bullshit of that, you don't have to. You don't have to read the whole thing. There were text messages outlined that if you read those, you really didn't have to read the case. That dropped your jaw enough.
I'm sure he read the whole thing back to back.
Well, listen, I think he's got a good mind for the business. I think it would be a mistake to get rid of him. But I mean, how do you keep anybody with the last name of McMahon? How do you know what I mean? We're going in a direction. All right, so it's like Gucci. There's not a family member left in Gucci. It's all run by other people. The name's there. we're going in a direction where you can't even imagine where professional wrestling is going. Once they eliminate all of the wrestling people, it is not going to be professional wrestling. It is barely now.
I was just going to say that when they're structuring their product like a television show, episodic television, and if you look, not I don't watch Raw, but I do catch the reviews. It's more 20-minute promos, vignettes, and then they have 1 or 2 matches a night. That's not what I'm interested in, but apparently I'm aged out of the product because it's making more money than ever. Right. You've got 2 million people watching out of 3 hours, a combined 12 minutes of in-ring action. So you know what? I hear what you're saying, Mario, and I agree. There should be wrestling people involved in wrestling at the highest levels, but I think you're absolutely right. I think they're going to be out, and I think it's going to be another episodic soap opera-like television show with the ring being, just a trapping, a necessary trapping.
It's just it's not gonna resemble anything, even like it is now. It's not gonna resemble anything like that. And you know what the only hope for? The real wrestling fans, the authentic wrestling fans, the people that want to see wrestling. You know, companies like Great North and Paradise Alley, they benefit from that because they go, hey, we can go here and see wrestling. You know, it's actually professional wrestling, not that stuff on TV, because it's going to go somewhere where nobody ever thought it went. Well, I mean, they'll probably start cutting away to people's houses. You know what I mean? How they are, maybe wrestlers dating in their house and stuff like that. And they're not even like reality TV, like just a primetime TV show, like a Law and Order. You know what I mean? And then, just like you see the courtroom eventually in Law and Order, and you see the wrestling ring.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely again, for those of us that appreciated the old school phenomenon, it's definitely not a positive element. But then again, they're not targeting. We're not in the key demo, so to speak, and advertisers are saying, look, we're getting 2 million people to watch a 30 or 40-minute back and forth with an entrance and everything, and then again, 12 minutes total of matches. We're making bank. Doesn't matter. But again, you're right. I think there is opportunity in that for independents to take advantage of, at least trying to keep that essential spirit of the business alive, and everything's cyclical. But we're forgetting about AEW, which has its own set of problems in that they do aggressive parkour and high spot after high spot with no psychology either. So I also lump them in to the not wrestling as I knew it either, and I don't like it as well. So I'm not trying to pick on WWE or AEW. It's just the way that it is.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
There is some hope for TNA Wrestling and that rebrand, because they've always focused on wrestling. To be fair to that company, they're not of the level of those two, but I think it's one to keep an eye on for sure.
Well, listen, as long as I'm at wrestling conventions and one person comes up to me and they go, hey, did you ever meet Haystacks Calhoun? And I go, no, never had the opportunity. Oh, I saw him wrestle. As long as those guys are still around, we can have a product. As long as those guys are around, because they know. So, listen, I had Roma leave an extensive voicemail for Tony Khan. Tony Khan won't listen. He won't listen. He could, right now is the time to strike. He can have the biggest company in the business. The biggest company. Won't listen. He won't listen. No matter how smart he is, no matter how much money he has, you have to have the brain for wrestling.
He does. It's just message board, Japanese, Wrestling Observer message board stuff, and that's not what that's not wrestling either.
He actually referenced Cage Match as a credible source for ranking matches. Now, normally we Cage Match is good for us, Jack, when we can go back and we can search through people's history of nearly everything is documented on Cage Match. It's great, but Tony Mario referenced how great the AEW Cage Match ratings were a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, he just doesn't listen. He just doesn't listen. I don't know. I don't know how much more money he wants to sink into it, but
I'm on their media team, and he's granted me zero interviews since I've been on there. Every single time I've done a press conference, I never got to ask a question. What's the fucking point in being on a media team? Just try to throw that out there as well. Again,
Holiday finally met him.
Yeah.
In England.
Oh, he was in London at the football game last week with Darby Allin and somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, he finally met him. I said, "Well, how'd it go?" Good. He liked my match. We had a conversation. I said, "Did he take your number?" He goes, "No."
That was at Progress Wrestling, I think, wasn't it? In London.
Yeah. Holiday was there for a week, so at least he met him face to face, Yeah,
Tony was
Roma was actually trying to get in there to write storylines. So, I don't.
Well, we're about at the hour and 17 mark. Before we wrap up this another epic edition of the Mario Mancini Show, I wanted to mention, Mario, that I did catch Hey Roma. I love the interplay between you and Paul. You had a wide-ranging discussion. Can you just give the Cheap Heat fans a little info about what you got cooking in that kitchen, so to speak?
Roma and I started Hey Roma. It's on Friday nights at like 6:00. We stream live for that show, but the first show we did was taped, and it's not wrestling. It's not just wrestling. It's the military is going to be a big part of our show. Probably the focus of it. And we talk about a wide range of topics and subjects. We're Trump guys. We made no bones about that. So whoever wants to tune out of that, they can. I'm not going to apologize for it, but this country right now is, I don't know what to think anymore. Everybody here is waiting for the grid to get hit. And us go back to like prehistoric times. I don't think anybody is looking at us as anymore, because we don't have a leader that
the old man.
So what I say to people, and they don't have an answer for me. Well, Trump, this, I go, who do we have? Give me somebody. Just give me somebody that we have. And they can't. They can't give me anybody that would do a great job. I mean, a young girl in Georgia just got murdered, by an illegal alien. And you know what? I was a big fan of Chris Cuomo on Fox. I love watching him. Never watch him again. I'll never watch him again, because if I was that girl's father, I would have went down to that station and gave him what for, because he's like, an illegal committed murder, but there's more murders committed by people that were born here than any. I'm like,
yes, I've heard that here the last year as well.
You know what I mean? The point is, though, if he wasn't let in, she'd still be alive. You know what I mean? So you gotta have a guy like Trump to get elected to go, guess what? The first thing I'm doing, everybody out. Everybody out. I'm getting all you out. 70,000 overdoses of fentanyl. 70,000 since 2021. 70,000 overdoses of fentanyl. So that's what that podcast is all about. And we go over wrestling. We're probably going to massacre John Cena on Friday. Just, I don't know what I don't know what he's thinking. I mean, I don't know. I don't, there's something called, I love you. What the fuck is wrong with you? What happened to that? What happened to that? That's been said before. Listen, I love you. I think you're great. But what the fuck were you thinking? What's wrong with you? No? You just come out and say, listen, I love the guy and I'm standing by him. What if that was your daughter? Stand by him then? He did that to your daughter. I have 3 of them. Listen, the inside is jail. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be more of a civil thing. But if people come out that should come out about certain things, it will be. It will be. For sure. Just got to wait.
So that's live on Friday, Mario?
Yeah, we should be. Yeah, we shoot from here from my conference rooms because we have Wi-Fi here. You can't afford Wi-Fi at Paradise Alley. So we do it here at the law firm, and hopefully we'll be going live. We got to see if our producer couldn't make it last week because his car blew up. So
just use StreamYard, Mario. You don't need a producer. Just use this platform.
I have no idea how to do it.
It's point and click. It's the industry standard. You'll have no problems.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll talk to Maurice. I'll talk to him. See, what do you just download it?
Don't even need to download. You just run. Are you using a laptop right now?
Yeah.
Use that laptop. Move it around whatever way you need to. Sit on a couch, whatever you need to do, and just hit play.
Create an account. That's it. Boom.
Yeah, because we have the microphones and the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm. You just need to link it up to your YouTube channel.
I don't have YouTube. I don't have YouTube.
Where does it air?
Right now, we're using the producer's YouTube channel because you have to wait like a couple of weeks in order to stream on it once you create it.
To go live, you do, I think. Yeah, you need to wait a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So it's a work in progress. We'll.
Everything's a work, Jack.
Everything's a work. That's tremendous. Well, we'll urge the fans to look for Friday, notwithstanding all of that, and look forward to all your upcoming multimedia appearances, sir.
All right, let me. I'm gonna go pull some rhomboids.